Hello. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Evie. Hi, Evie. I think we were having a little bit of sticky moments there with the
Did we?
connection. Yeah, it happens. It's technology, and we have no control over that. So let us stay in our sage states where that's concerned.
Absolutely.
Anyway, great to be here with you. And I was just thinking, gosh,
Me
we've only
too.
got two saboteurs left, the one today and one for next week. And we have kind of gone through the saboteurs and kind of shared a bit about them. And this week we are going to look at the hyper-vigilant saboteur.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I want to be really happy and say that this was like zero point 0.6 on my rate. I think it was yeah,
I
no.
think mine was down there as well, pretty much.
And there's always things. This something else will be what you are more of, or the patterns that show up more, and other things are very rare or have come up. Because actually, even now, even as I was thinking about hypervigilant, I can see where I got pretty close, or where I was at a time where that was probably dialed up. There was definitely a pattern that ran there, but not for very long. And it's just, yeah. But it's really interesting actually to just be able to acknowledge when certain things are happening in your life, and how a pattern can just jump in, one that you perhaps haven't used very much or at all, and then suddenly it's alive and well and holding the floor. Not not ideal. So for me, this whole thing about knowing and understanding them is so key to recognizing what is happening with you when situations change in your life, and how they can impact you and change your behavior patterns.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
from the I'm not enough point of view, I think the hypervigilant is one of the ones that are really working on the self-fulfilled prophecy, because like you really there is an issue of trust.
Yes.
And when you don't trust um, people around you, or even your own abilities, because it can sort of bleed into that, right? Straight away you're like, oh, I can't trust myself of being good enough for this particular thing, or I
Absolutely.
haven't learned enough for that thing. And now uh, people around me, well, they said well done, but who are they to tell me that? And to
Yes.
know, in deep in my heart, how I feel. So there are all sorts of things, I think, with the hypervigilant. But as you said, for me, it's like one of the very lowest saboteurs, because I have a tendency, and I think most coaches do, of trying to see the best in every situation or every person that they have in front of them. So when it comes to trust issues, I don't want to say that I'm gullible. I hopefully I'm not, but I mean, it can get to that extent of like, you know, really giving the benefit of the doubt
Yes.
to any situation, anyone that you have in front of you. But of course, for somebody that has a very high hypervigilant, it must be quite a difficult one to navigate. I don't know. Do you know any hypervigilance in your practice or in your life?
Interestingly, as I think about clients, I can think of, yes, one or two where I wouldn't say it probably was the pattern at the top of their list, but the pattern was there. And actually, even in fact, actually, very, very recently, a new client, and she said to me, she said, it took everything within me to contact you, because she didn't trust the decision she was making to do so. And then she didn't know whether she would trust me to hold the space for her. And I loved that she said that, because that was her actually almost like saying, I'm not going to allow this saboteur to run the show, because I actually
Absolutely.
do feel safe and I do feel that I can trust you. But her initial she said everything in her body. She was like, she contacted me, we had a conversation, and then she said after that, it was just like, oh, what have I done? What have I done? That whole sense of panic and anxiousness kicked in because it's so outside of her comfort zone. It's so outside of what she would normally do. She was saying, usually if she was going to get into anything, she'd have like examined the person inside out, would probably have contacted other people who knew the person before. You know what I mean? There are lots of steps and processes she would have gone through to have some sense of comfort before she actually did anything. But on this occasion, she just said, I felt, and I love the wording because she said, I felt a pull. I went, it was a pull.
There you go.
That's
I
kind of
wonder why she felt the pull though.
So that was just beautiful. But I do know people who have high anxiety levels, and it's because every single thing triggers them into, oh my gosh, but what if that doesn't happen? What if I could? And oh my goodness, and what have I done? What haven't I done? What will they think? What will they think? What do I think? Who's that person? This just constant stream of and it is like relentless anticipation of failures or mistakes. It is relentless. When I think about that, I just feel exhausted thinking about it. So I can only imagine what the person is experiencing.
That's the thing. One. I don't think we see enough hypervigilance in our practices because they're not. I want to say very coachable. They are. Everybody is coachable as far as I'm concerned, but they will not, as your client said, they will not really take the risk or give you the benefit of the doubt or trust you unless you actually prove. But then if you don't give somebody the benefit of the doubt, then how can you get to the point of trusting them? So it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And as you said, it can be relentless. It can be very hard to live in somebody's head that they are hyper vigilant because it is not comfortable not to be able to trust anyone, and almost not even yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge amount of discomfort. And as I think about when I think about that period of time when I definitely had anxious tendencies, and I would never have named it that way at the time. I just felt like I was really stressed, but actually I was anxious. And that was after my redundancy, the relationship that was coming out of, the relationship I was going into, the arguments I was having with my son. It was just all hitting the wall. And I think that constant knot in my stomach, that constant not trusting my next decision, well, these are all signs of that hypervigilance. It was very short-lived, but I absolutely was in that state. Now I can see it. And so even when I think now and I think how that felt for me, it was physically painful because my stomach literally felt like it was doing that. It was just being wrung out constantly. And so every time I thought, right, what I need to do, but is that the right thing to do? Should I do that? Is that it? Very tiring. And I mean, I only experienced it maybe for a month, but it was exhausting.
Because that's what triggers, especially I think for people like us, that we're not like, in that constant state of hypervigilance. Probably the things that triggered this is points in our lives where, the decision that we have made or a circumstance sort of undermined our trustworthiness, or not trustworthiness, trusting the situation or trusting somebody. So, but for people that are not generally hyper vigilant, I think you overcome that because you find the next thing that you can trust, and then you are okay with it. But when you are hyper vigilant, it's very hard to find anything that you can trust, because also, we know that when you want evidence, you can find evidence for anything you believe.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's a constant battle with yourself, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, every time you find that thing that confirms that you're right in thinking that something or someone shouldn't be trusted, every you're literally just putting up this mirror for more of that to come, and you'll just keep on seeing things, and you'll keep on
Right.
feeling things, and you'll keep on experiencing things that support the fact that you and others and situations are not to be trusted. um, and and interestingly, when I think about the kind of behaviors that go into that pattern, it also reminds me a little bit about the perfectionist. Nothing's ever enough. Nothing's ever enough. So I kind of almost feel like those two, if you had those two high up, oh my goodness, they would be like, my scenario of in the playground, they would be like best buddies running amok, causing havoc every which way. So it's really important to be able to understand that it's a pattern. It's not you. We've said this all the time through all of these. It's a pattern. It's not you. Being able to recognize it then gives you the opportunity to do something about it, because
Absolutely.
something can be done about it, even if that pattern was embedded years and years ago. It can be dialed down is kind of like the phraseology I like to use, because it's not about getting rid of the saboteurs, because every saboteur has underneath it, when it's not acting for your not for your good, there's strength, right? There's strength and there's power. But when it is running free and wild as the saboteur, you are not getting the best of who you are from it. That's kind of the thing. So do you know it? So I'm going to ask you the same question, Evie. So as you think of your network of people, any hypervigilance that come to
Well,
mind?
I have a hypervigilant within my close circle, so yes, I understand the patterns very well, and it's very hard to, get them to understand them themselves. It's and funny enough, I did go through with them with the assessment, and when they would ask and question every single bit, because you see, also when you are a hyper vigilant, you don't trust the process, clearly, and the other thing is that you straight away become very offensive about what is, of course, in their minds. They need to ask every question, and they need to make sure that they have, like, gone through and all the mitigating situations, I don't know, to make sure that everything is going to work as perfect as possible. It can be very paralyzing, let
Yeah,
me tell you. And it's also sad, because you can miss opportunities when you are in that state of connections or networking that can really, be very good for your life, for
yeah,
your, like your development, even taking you out of the whole situation of being hyper vigilant.
yeah,
But I think hypervigilance starts, especially when it is so, like, strong. It has to do with young trauma. So there is a lot of things. You need to be very, very strong and ready to start working towards overcoming this pattern,
yes,
and recognize that it is a pattern and it can be overcome, because it's hard for them to see that it's a pattern. They prefer to see that they are doing that they're doing a service to themselves by
yes,
making sure that all the walls are up and they are safe. So
yes,
it has to do with this.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
and usually, the trauma has to do with I'm not enough. So it is that is what causes it said, I'm not enough. So this person that was very important in my life treated me a certain way.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now I'm going to make sure that nobody treats me this way ever again. And I'm not going to put my guard down. So yeah, it is painful.
It really is. And I think also every time we kind of explore these different saboteurs, there is like this little sense of kind of sadness that kind of comes up, because you just know that when somebody's stuck in those patterns, you just know how miserable life must feel in either certain points of time or really for long periods of time, if they're
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of deeply rooted. And I think when I think about hypervigilant, there is this, it's one of the things that comes up is like any setback. It doesn't matter how tiny it is, something that maybe many of us would just go, oh, whatever. For them, it's a huge deal, because it's just another thing that's reinforcing that,
Correct.
things are not to be trusted, people aren't to be trusted, they're not to be trusted, they can't do, just kind of really hunkering down on disabling themselves through the language that they use with themselves. And it's not just that it's debilitating, it's like soul destroying. It's really, it can be so impactful. And that's impacting the quality of your life. It's most definitely probably impacting your health, because if your body is in the constant state of stress, because this is the other thing, hypervigilance, you're constantly like on guard, waiting,
Looking
watching.
for the tigers.
Ooh, I'm telling you, your cortisol levels must be through the roof. So that stress, on your body system is going to be causing a different kind of pain that can manifest into something very real in terms of your physical well-being. So there is this kind of understanding that it goes so much deeper, that the damage that we can be doing to ourselves if we allow the patterns to continue, can really hurt our health, our physical well-being, the way that we show up, the way that we can, the energy that we have or don't have, how depleted we get. Sometimes from doing simple things, because even the simple things then become a questionable thing. And did I do it right? And should I have done it? And maybe I shouldn't have. Everything. On the back of that, though, at this point, I just want to bring in the strength, because I always
Yes, please.
once you hear all that, you're like, holy, I never want to have any of that on me. Thank you very much. But there are strengths from that when the hyper is gone and you are vigilant. Well, of course, when you're vigilant, it means that you're aware of things that perhaps other people aren't. So you will probably be
Absolutely.
able to see things that other people will miss. So that's great. You probably have. You probably know when to take risks and when not. When you're not in the hyper-vigilant state, you are probably much better assessing whether something is even worth the risk or not. So that for me is enough. You're probably somebody who is like the guardian of people. You look after your people because you want to keep them safe and secure. So there's all these beautiful things that you absolutely want to maintain. They are the strengths that are being overplayed by the saboteur. So the saboteur has just right. You've got those strengths. We're going to take them to the next level, and then the next level, and then it becomes something very different that does not serve you and doesn't serve the people around you. Because when there's a lack of trust, I believe you can usually feel it. You can feel if somebody's not feeling quite
Oh,
comfortable
yeah.
around you. And so what do? Your saboteurs come up, but also you then start to withdraw. So it's always like, well, now there's disconnect. Now there's this gully between us, triggered by how I feel about the way that you're speaking or doing something. So it can cause a lot of separation. So not great for relationships, not great, not even great in the work environment if you're part of a team. Yeah, it's another tricky one, but they're all tricky.
They are. They are. That's true. But I mean, it also depends on how strong the vigilance, the vigilance strengths appear, especially when the person is like quite aware of the how do you call it, um, how to be like, because like when people are very guarded, they also are the type of people that they are like observing a lot and talking less. And then it is easier for them to show up in a way that they expect people want them to show up,
Yes.
which again, it can be very hard because it takes energy for you to show up in a way that it's not authentic.
Yes.
um, and it doesn't mean that it's not authentic in like you are trying to trick somebody. It's more that you are trying to protect yourself. So it is very different. It's very
Yeah.
hard to really
Yeah.
get in the mind of somebody like this, and see how much it affects them.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
like every saboteur, I think that they stop us in some respect from being authentic, because
Yes.
they are like pressuring us, and they are moving us in directions that like there is always resistance. There is always that the drugging, like, oh, it's
Yes.
not pull, it's push constantly. So you can't be authentic in an environment like this, in that type of container. You need to like be able to reach out to your saves and understand how to bring up the strengths of the different saboteurs, and of course especially your highest saboteurs,
Yes.
and work with them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the beauty of understanding the sage, the way the sage operates. And if you want to feel safe and secure, do it from the sage perspective, not from the saboteurs, because in
100%.
the sage perspective, that it's a completely different experience, and that is you utilizing the strengths. That is you being able to tap into those underlying gifts that you have. That hold you and don't strangle you, because I feel like the saboteurs are a little bit like at your throat, and incredibly overpowering. And I think one of the things that comes up for me, not just with the hypervigilant, but if you are in that state of what if, oh my goodness, I've done everything wrong. If that's a constant for you, and that anxiousness, it's also about the like attract like thing. So what are you pulling in? What situations, what people are showing up are you pulling in with that energy that you're putting out? Okay, because unless you're like top-notch actor and you can hold it all down and no one really knows, there is, but even still, it's within you. So you'll still attract
Absolutely.
that which you are pouring out. So I think that there is this understanding that however hard you are trying to protect yourself, and however well you may think you are doing it, that actually there is every chance that you're bringing in the very things that you don't want, because it's the saboteur's pattern. It's the saboteur pattern. It's not the sage, thoughtful, calm, clear-headed ways of getting stuff done.
Absolutely. And especially with the I'm not enough pattern, every single one of the saboteurs is going to try to pull evidence to show you why you're not enough. And if you want to be in that state, or you want to, if like that's what you think, and you let the saboteurs play, then yeah, you're definitely going to find every single evidence under the sun that you're not enough.
Yes.
And within all sorts of situations, personally and professionally, and that becomes like the loop. And hopefully with this type of discussions, we're trying to get you out of the loop a little bit, and see how I mean, to get the different perspective, to understand what it means not to be in that constant round and round and round that it doesn't get you anywhere.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. It's and I think one of the great things about having the conversations that we've been having and kind of highlighting each saboteur is really just to give us all the opportunity to press pause and just have one really acknowledge this is a pattern. It's not who I am, because it's been running for so long, because most of these patterns have been running for so long, we have, most of us, accepted them as part of who we, oh, this is how I show up. I was saying this, wasn't I, with the restless? Yeah, well, that's, I've always been somebody who loved it, but there's a difference between me wanting to be curious and explore, as opposed to me running off and doing 2 million things as a way of not really getting anything done, like build, kind of like digging 200 holes but not getting deep on anything. And that's what my restless was creating for me, along with my avoider. So understanding these are just patterns, and that once we can identify them and accept them, because the other thing that came up for me with the hyper-vigilant is that I've not taken anyone through the assessment yet who's hyper-vigilant. So my new client hasn't actually done the assessment yet. And I just thought, because even doing the assessment will probably be hard work, just doing
oh
it,
yeah,
much less hearing what comes out the other side. Well, where's the proof? Well, how is that true? How do you know that? I can already kind of feel that swell of resist that could arise from the very
absolutely.
process.
But let me tell you, because most hypervigilance are very much about facts and about science,
Yes.
the fact that positive
It,
intelligence is backed by science
yeah.
is a very big eye opener.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where you can really support anyone in your life, or
Yeah.
from your clients, um, with this, and sort of like shift them into
Yes.
like a much more serving kind of being, overall.
Yeah.
And it
Absolutely. Yeah.
might be different areas as well, because that's one thing that like, sometimes those patterns show up differently in different areas of your life. So you might
Yes.
be a very very hyper vigilant on like, I don't know, at work, but not in your personal life, or the other way around, or I mean, be a
Absolutely.
controller somewhere else, and something else, in a different part
Environment.
of your life. So it is important to understand those things and the patterns, and start shifting them slowly. You can't do these things overnight, and I mean, personally, I think that I will be in that process for the rest of my life. I mean, I was lucky enough to come across this type of framework,
Yeah.
but it is an ongoing process for like, for us
Absolutely.
to
Yes.
understand.
Yes. Well, I think
Mm,
I think because we talk a lot in positive intelligence, we talk an awful lot about, mental fitness. And for somebody who started in the fitness industry, physical fitness industry, 40 years ago, you don't go into fitness for 2 minutes,
no.
which is always why it always tickles me when people say, I just want to get a bikini body for my holiday. It's just like, what does that even mean? But that's a whole other thing. When you decide to look after your body, it's for the rest of your life, one would hope. When you decide to look after your mental muscles and strengthen them, it's for the rest of your life, I hope, because you will keep on deepening and growing and expanding because of it. And that, when we talk about being optimal and reaching our potential, these are the things that enable us to do that. The willingness to, like, this is part of my lifestyle now. This is what I do to ensure I don't fall back into patterns that don't serve me, that I can tap into the wisdom that I have been blessed with, plus my skills and my knowledge and my expertise, and then shine, and then just shine. And so for me, yeah, this is not a quick fix. That doesn't mean to say that you doesn't mean to.
Sorry.
The cat's got something to say.
Absolutely. Another hyper-vigilant here, I'll tell you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's you can get results quickly. Yes. However, if you really want to expand yourself and really be the best that you can be and to shine and to take your brilliance, then be prepared to embed the new ways for life, whatever
Absolutely.
that means.
And, it is a lifestyle, isn't it? It's like whatever we do that serves us well. And when we are aware of the things that don't serve us, well, we just drop them. So that's the whole point. And that's what I love about positive intelligence overall. I mean, the fact that it is something we can use in our everyday life, something we can use in our professions, something we can use with our children, something
Yep.
we can use with everything, every kind of relation. And there is only like something good to come out of it. That's the whole point, because it is work that you do with yourself.
Yes.
It's not about somebody telling you what to do. It's about work that you do with yourself.
Yeah.
So even for the hypervigilance out there, it's not about, somebody else telling you what to do.
Yeah.
It's you realizing what serves best and testing it and seeing how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And cultivating your strengths so that they're the things that you're tapping into, because that's what's going to benefit you, that's what's going to benefit others, that's what's going to benefit the situations and the circumstances that you find yourself in. And I always harp on about the strengths, because sometimes it can feel like, oh my gosh, well, if that's what's running around in me, that just sounds like hell. And that is not great. But understanding that, yes, in the middle of all that crazy, there's the nuggets of your brilliance that are waiting to be fully realized and revealed. And that is what I love about positive intelligence. And that, once you start using the mental fitness process, getting into that and kind of really using the tools and doing something every day, I mean, the shift is incredible.
Absolutely.
A year ago, I would have probably not even thought that. Well, what do I need it for? I'm good. I'm positive. I'm upbeat. Da 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 da. It has been absolutely amazing. It has impacted me in more ways than I can quantify right here, right now. And it all begins with an assessment, which, week after week, we keep on encourage you to go do the assessment, even if you do nothing else, just do the assessment, see the results, and at least, kind of give yourself the opportunity to think, wow, how has that pattern been showing up in my life, and what areas of my life? Because like you said, Evie, what shows up in one area may not show up so much in another. I think with the hypervigilant, if you are trusting of your home life and the people in your home life, that may not play out so much. But you go into the work environment, people less known, situations less known, and it could be a whole other thing. So, there's just being able to recognize the patterns, not self. And then being able to really think, well, what do I want to do with that? Now that I know that, what do I want to do with that?
That's it.
Yeah,
For
that is
sure.
it.
I always try to, when somebody talks to me and they are like in that state of not being sure about, all this the one thing I always try to remind them is that everything that you believe must have something opposite as well. So the only way to verify this is look for the opposite evidence as well, and see what that is for you. What does that do for you? And
Yeah.
then, find the middle bit, which usually is the best road ever, more or less, right? There are not specifics in these things. So
Yeah, it's shifting, isn't it? Because I think we also the language we need to be really careful with language. What's good, what's bad. We know through our own experience of positive intelligence that there is no good or bad, or there is and there
absolutely.
isn't, right? So it just depends. When something happens, how we view it gives us the experience and the sensations that go with that. We can choose to think, but this isn't the end. There's more. Thus, I don't have to get stuck in this set of feelings and thoughts, etc. And I think that also has been like a real beautiful understanding from positive intelligence. Is we are very good at getting stuck in a moment of disappointment, of whatever that thing is, whatever wording we want to put around it, and it's bad. And yet quite often out of those scenarios can come something quite brilliant. And I always think about being made redundant. Well, if I hadn't been made redundant, would I have stayed in a job that I really had outgrown, and just done it because actually it was okay and I loved the people I worked with and I was well paid, and would I have just tiptoed along in that? And actually releasing me allowed me to release myself from that to start my own business. So there's and then along the way there have been plenty of moments, and out of each of those has come some sunshine. So it's a journey, and I think it's a journey. It's a journey. And let's be here for the journey, for as long as we can be here for the journey, right?
Absolutely. We're all for the journey.
Yeah, yeah,
The destination will come whether we like it or not. But I mean, it
indeed.
is the journey that makes a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have got one more saboteur to cover next week, which is another hyper
Mm.
rational. So we will have a look at that next week, and we will be sharing a little bit about kind of what will be happening, what we're going to be talking about, kind of change of branding, and all sorts of things that are happening behind the scenes that we're super excited about. And we hope that those of you who have been following, who've been watching the videos, who've been messaging us, that you will kind of be excited to hear what we're doing, and will perhaps even want to be a part of that.
Well, for one, I'm very excited about what's coming, and it's always a pleasure working with you, Yvonne. So
Ditto.
only good things can come out of that.
Ditto. Yeah, we have so much fun too, which is like for me the cream on the top is like we have
That's
fun
it.
doing what we do. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So with that said, Evie, thank you so much once again for another great week
Thank
of
you.
conversation. Thank you to everyone who has been listening or who listens on replay. We really appreciate you showing up. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your messages, any feedback. That's what it's all about, interacting. So thank you.
Thank you.